Good morning. It's another magic morning, another magic Monday. Welcome to my room, and I hope you're snuggled up with a nice warm cuppa as we start another week here on the show that is, as of yet, unnamed. Today's the day I'm going to name it. I'm announcing it later today. I'll be looking for feedback from everybody today on the name of this show. But for now, let's just get started, because this morning we are talking about courage. Courage. Something that is, as you can tell, I'm losing my voice a little bit. We had a fabulous party here yesterday for my grandson's birthday. We laughed, we danced, we sang, we ate, we drank, we made new friends, and I'm suffering a little bit with a lack of vocal cords this morning. Anyway, courage. What is courage? The ability to do something that frightens you. She called on all her courage to face the ordeal. This is out of the dictionary, right? Strength in the face of pain or grief. He fought his illness with great courage. Merriam-Webster says, courage is the quality of being ready and willing to face negative situations involving danger or pain. A close synonym is bravery. Showing courage is often thought of as facing such situations without such fear, but it also involves facing them despite fear. Bravery, courage, daring, dauntlessness, fearlessness, fortitude, gallantry, grit, and guts. All components of courage. Now, on Friday last week, we talked about being an authentic you. Being who you are, true down to your core. And that takes courage. So that's what we're talking about today, is where do I get the courage to be my authentic self, to say my truths, to withstand the dislikes, the criticisms, the conflicts that might come when I truly am myself, right? So it takes guts to step outside of the expected. And when sometimes being ourselves, being authentic you, that's what you're doing. You're stepping outside what is expected of you. You're stepping away from the norm. And to stand up to the fear of not being liked, not being loved, not being accepted, it takes courage. So let's talk about how we're going to push past that fear. Now, for me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this for myself. There was a moment for me when this all became so very clear. The light bulb moment. When I had to do something that I dreaded. I was truly afraid. I knew it didn't make sense. I knew that there was really nothing physically to be afraid of, but I did not want to face this situation. Still dealing with a little bit of the trauma. Thinking about it caused just my gut to squeeze, right? But I knew I still had to show up. So I was worried about it. And I read and I worked on how am I going to get rid of this fear, right? I tried to outrun it. I tried to outtalk it. I reasoned with it. I tried to muscle it out. I tried it all. And I still had that feeling, right? That tightness in my gut, that fear of this irrational fear of what might or might not happen. And then the defining moment for me was realizing that I didn't have to stop being afraid. It all became just so clear that I didn't have to figure this out, right? What the fear is, that we know what the fear is, right? That squeeze, that stomach, that overwhelming feeling of dread, of not being up to it, of being inadequate. We start thinking through the worst possible outcome of whatever we're facing and imagining even the most unlikely scenarios, right? But the secret is, you don't have to figure that out. You don't have to stop it. You just have to learn how to do what you got to do anyway. That's all it is. It's not about being afraid. It's about being afraid and still having action. So once you get that, how you keep going, how to keep going in spite of the fear. For me, you have to go straight through it. So for me, I imagined a wall of fire, right? I could see in front of me this wall of fire. And on the other side of that wall, I could see the outcome. I could see peace and calm and the results that I wanted, right? But there's no way to get there except that wall of fire. So right? No other way to get there except to go through it. So, you are afraid, you walk through the wall. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, let's talk about a couple ways about how you might, when you're standing there looking at that wall of fire, how are you going to muster up the courage, as they say, to get yourself through it? Well, remember, first of all, fear is based on chemicals. Keep talking about the chemicals of happiness, but there's definitely the chemicals of fear. And you are calling those chemicals into play with your thoughts and emotions, right? You're basically creating those chemicals. Study shows that by injecting, and I don't know the chemicals' names today, but a study shows that when you inject those chemicals, you can artificially create fear. So that tells us, chemically based, and that we can change the chemicals. We can change the chemicals in our brain when we change the way we think and feel. It's a simple science experiment, right? So a good way to do this when you're afraid is to simply engage your prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain executive functioning, right? This is the plane where you solve problems and does reason. So do a puzzle. Solve some problem that's been bugging you. Sit down and do your emails. Do some math. Sometimes just sitting down to work. Sometimes just refocusing our brain and engaging in that reasoning part of our brain changes the chemical makeup and moves the fear to the background. It's a little bit amazing. And you can learn to control your thoughts, because we talk about this all the time, positive thinking, right? You decide which thoughts you will entertain in your brain. Out, damn thought. Out, I say. Which thoughts are you going to send on their way? Another way to do it is name your fears. Shadows scare us, but turning on the light reveals the truth, right? Naming your fears can take the power out of them. Tell a friend. Have a conversation with your spouse or partner. Write it down. The simple act of turning the miasma of emotion and fear and what's going on in there, those unnamed shadows in our head, the simple act of turning those into language, into sentences, into concrete and complete thoughts, it changes everything in your brain. All of a sudden, what have you done? You've engaged the prefrontal cortex. Now you're starting to think about solutions and backup plans. A little amazing, right? A study at Stanford validated that attitude certainty is a form of psychological safety net that can keep fear in check in the midst of things, uncertainty, things we're afraid of. Take some time. We talked about authentic you. What does that mean? Who do you want to be? Take some time to decide who you want to be and connect to those strengths. Write down a list of the challenges you've overcome in the past. Get crystal clear about your values, such as integrity, faith, decency, kindness. These will guide your actions and give you tools to deal with the fear. And stop with the what-if scenarios. We do them almost all the time. We again, this is about controlling our thoughts. We kind of get off into the, what if this happens and this happens, and then we're off to the worst-case scenario. You can stop that if you want to. Another trick or another idea is to just embrace your fear. Sometimes I call it allowing myself to wallow in any ugly emotion or any difficult emotion, right? Allow yourself to feel it. Acknowledge, this really sucks. I really hate this feeling. This fear has really gripping me, right? Just acknowledge it and then set a time limit. I'm going to feel this way for all of Saturday, and Sunday I'm going to start working on solutions. It sounds goofy, right? I'm going to do this for 1 hour and then I'm going to get back to work. I'm going to sit here in my chair and be afraid for an hour. It sounds goofy. But what happens is you realize in the midst of this, you know it's there. You're seeped in it. You can visualize. And then once you're done, you can just kind of shrug it off like a cloak. You don't need it anymore, right? Once you're done, you've felt it. You no longer need to examine it. You let it go. And here's the pro tip. When it's time to let it go, take action. Don't hesitate. The longer we wait to act, the more excuses our brain comes up with not to do it. Courage is a habit. Again, there's that word, a skill that you can develop when you practice it. Most of us are not born courageous, so you shouldn't expect to magically acquire it. It doesn't really happen without some effort on your on your part. Brene Brown, in her book The Gifts of Imperfection, says courage is a habit of virtue. You get it by courageous acts. It's like you learn to swim by swimming. You learn courage by couraging. Get in the habit of deciding what you think about things. Speak your truths. Here's your courage every day, right? Speak from a place of conviction. Practice saying what you think. Start with small, inconsequential things and work up to the big ones, right? Be pleasant, be polite, be kind, but say what you really believe. Every time you feel some fear and you do something anyway, you're building your courage muscle. You are adding to the list of ways you have overcome, right? So sometimes you can focus on other people. We stand up for other people. Sometimes it's easier to be courageous on behalf of others than it is for ourselves. Speak up when you see an untruth or feel an injustice. Here's one I really like. Here's a methodology that I really enjoy, and this is consult your future self. We always talk about our best self, our best version of ourselves. Sometimes I like to take that person, that best version of myself, and I see her and talk to her. You can ask her advice. You can borrow her courage, right? I call it stepping into my badass suit. I have this visualization of this big giant version of me, and like I'm a superhero, almost like a transformer, but cute. And I can unzip the back and step into it and step into these powers bigger than myself to take on whatever I have to that day. I call it my badass suit. That's my courage. I step into my badass suit. So finally, surround yourself with people who lift up your spirits and inspire you to be braver in your everyday life. Right? Do not surround yourself with people who make you feel fearful or question yourself, right? Again, we're back to the 5 people we spend the most time with. Be around people who believe in you and help you see what you don't see in yourself and have the courage to put it out there, right? Tell yourself, use your own language. Tell yourself, you've got this. You can say, oh, I'm afraid of this, or you can say, you've got this. I can do this. Get into the habit of encouraging and inspiring yourself. So I'm going to end with I have two endings, actually. I don't have quotes today, but we're going to do 2 endings today. I want to tell a story about my mom, and then I give the end of a little poem to share with you. This is something my mom taught me when I was a kid, and she said this my whole life, and I've used this my whole life. And it's 3 little sentences. When something is challenging in front of you, there's 3 little things she says to herself, and she taught me to say about myself. The first one is get over yourself. Life is going to keep moving. Things are expected of you. Your thoughts, don't allow your thoughts to put you in the quagmire. Get over yourself and get on with it, right? The next one is thank you, Jesus, from a place of gratitude. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Whatever is for you, whoever you say thank you to, whoever your gratitude comes from, be grateful for all the things you do have in spite of whatever that challenge is that you're dealing with. And finally, you've got this, right? You've got this. You can do it. Remember that. Get over yourself. Thank you, Jesus. You can do this. And you can translate those into whatever statements work for you, but it's the same idea, right? Get past what's stopping you. Be grateful for all that's in your life. You can do whatever's in front of you. And I want to end with a little poem. It is indeed from the book The Queen of Happiness, and other poems that will lift you up, dust you off, and lead you to a happier tomorrow. I'll put the link in the show notes today, or in the comments today. This is a poem called Not the Lesson. And I'm just going to read the end, but I think it kind of ties in today. So revel when the glory days bring joy and sunshine cross your course. Diminish not the happy ways you join in union with your source. But in times when hope seems far away, when grace and courage are required, take heart that what you give today is not half as much as you've acquired. Because practicing courage fills you up with confidence and leads to the authentic you. So that's the show for today. Look forward to a message from me later today announcing the formal name. I look forward to talking with you again tomorrow. Make it a happy day.